And nobody. Just want to hear what y'all talking about. That's all. Being nosy. That's all. Yeah. How's everybody doing?
All right.
Good.
Um, just I'm moody this week, but it's okay. When am I not moody?
Exactly. That's what I'm about to say.
I'm consistent.
That's the good thing. That's what we know what we're getting. Yes,
I,
sir.
I suppose being
Good
on a
evening, everybody. We are live and welcome to the interview corner. Today we have a special guest. We have Mr. Andrae King, Director of Bands of Shaw University. Before we get into it, I want to read his bio. He currently serves as Director of Bands of Shaw University, located in Raleigh, North Carolina. Prior to this appointment in 2019, Mr. King simultaneously worked as an elementary school teacher in Wake County Public Schools while serving various roles on the staff within the Platinum Sound Marching Band. During his tenure as director of bands in Kinston High School from 2010 to 2015, he received many excellent and superior ratings in various concert and marching band events. Mr. King has received his bachelor's of arts in music from Shaw University and his master's of music education from Kent State University. He also furthers his studies at Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina. He is married to Miss Regina and has two beautiful girls, Aubrey and Reagan. Andrae is the proud member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. Let's give a huge round of applause for Mr. Andrae King. So
Woo!
we thank you for coming on the interview corner. Um, Here we like to learn about the director before we get into the topic. So first, can you tell us a little bit more about your musical background?
Uh, let's see. I was high school. I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, originally. Unfortunately, I did not have the honor of going to E. E. Smith, but I was right around the corner at Terry Sanford High School. During that time, I actually started out in orchestra. I have a unique situation as to I didn't do marching band until I actually got to Shaw University. When I got to Shaw, I always say Shaw was probably the best last minute decision I ever made. I met my band director, Mr. Charles Brown, and I told him, hey, I play string bass and I need some scholarship money because I didn't have enough to cover tuition. So he had me to audition for concert. I mean, he had me audition on string bass. I did my thing and he put me in jazz band and concert band, but he said I had to march. So I played cymbals that first year. And simultaneously, I learned tuba and stuck with it. And so I graduated here um, with uh, with my degree and my main instrument as tuba. Um, from there, I went on to Fayetteville State, got my teaching license for 2 years, and I had the unique honor of also marching with the Bronco Express for 1 year under Mr. Timothy Chambers. A unique, I guess something unique is that I actually went to Honda Battle of the Bands with both bands. The both bands, the one and only time they've been. Shaw in 2008 as the drum major, and then Fayetteville State in 2009 as a tuba player. Um, so it was very cool to get both perspectives of two legends in the game, Mr. Charles Brown and Mr. Timothy Chambers. Um, and I went to first job was in a rural place, Kinston, North Carolina, in the eastern part of the state. We were a core style band program, so I've done core style for 3 years. I did converted them over for the last two I was there. Learned a lot, and and was able to take it and apply everything that I needed to know. I guess the unique thing I say about me, I guess, in this position is I don't know if I'm the youngest band director in the CIAA, but I think I might be because I'm 30. I'm currently 35, um, and pretty much how I guess this came to fruition was one day Mr. Brown brought Shaw's band to one of my home games at Kinston. Um, and when we were feeding my boosters were feeding the band, and Mr. Brown gave a speech and said, "You know what? I want King to be the next director of bands at Shaw University." And obviously, in those type of situations, you clap and you smile and move on. out the random, I got a call saying, King, I want you to move to Raleigh because the arranger, who's been with the band for a while, decided to move on. So I made it work and got the elementary school job while simultaneously getting my degree. And here I am. So that's pretty much in a nutshell where I've been. And Gary's been with me every step of the way.
Wow, 35. That is a young age to take over a program. So congratulations to you, sir. Um, who are some of your inspirations in music education? Like who's the people that push you to become who you are?
Um, I definitely would have to say Mr. Brown, because I'm thankful for the opportunity that I have. Because one of the unique things about going to a smaller HBCU like Shaw University is that um, I guess people can see the potential in what you can be versus what you are currently. And that was one of the things that, I will always respect Mr. Brown for, because he always pushed me to do better. And he had his way to get those things out of you. But I can respect it, and I'm thankful for that opportunity. So for that in and of itself, I definitely credit Mr. Brown, because he taught me how to make a whole lot out of a little. And especially working at a small HBCU, and even at a high school program, a good band director or music educator has to know how to make a whole lot out of really virtually sometimes nothing. Another influence would definitely be Timothy Chambers. When it comes to arranging, I learned a lot from him in terms of voicing, because the one thing that you can, those who are, I guess, really connoisseurs of the band world, if you follow Mr. Chambers' work, he has had a consistent sound, whether he was at Alcorn as assistant band director, Fayetteville State, Kentucky State, and now at Lincoln. And I always joke with Mr. Chambers and say that that he has a swag, like the Chambers swag. And when I saw the pep band at CIAA tournament, I was like, man, they're coming along. They, because he's rebuilding and doing everything with that program and doing an amazing job. So those would be my two influence. And of course, hometown. I would not be remiss if I did not mention Mr. Pratt, because although, it was pretty much indirect, experiences with Mr. Pratt, but the fact that, he's from my hometown, anytime that I've had conversations or, and needed support, whether it was at Kinston, or, even here at Shaw, going back to, recruit students and things like that, I just appreciate those conversations, and also your example, because you and I mean that's pretty much it, and amongst a host of others as well. Definitely James Richardson as well in Fayetteville. He's definitely one of my mentors as well at Pine Forest High School.
Wow, you named some legends right there. Shout out to Mr. Pratt, who we do have on the live with us. So let's talk about Shaw University. First, what can you tell me about your institution?
I think the interesting thing about Shaw is the fact that we have a lot of history behind us. We're the first historically Black college in North Carolina. We affectionately refer to ourselves as the first HBCU in the South. And a lot of the founders of other historically Black institutions came from Shaw University. And even A&T's, we're a part of North Carolina A&T's history, as A&T was founded here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and shared a campus with Shaw until they moved to Greensboro. So that's something that's really interesting, an interesting fact. So, we have a lot of, Shaw is definitely a historic school. We were founded in 1865. We're a small liberal arts college. We're right downtown Raleigh. I always tell, when I recruit students that we're a small school in a big city. which I feel is pretty much the best of both worlds, because you can get that small environment without being in the middle of nowhere. So those are unique things that I can say about my institution.
So you're not only the director of bands, but you're a proud alum of the university. So what was your experience like when you marched under the program?
Um, my experience was pretty much a, a one that definitely grew me as a person. Because I would say personally, like I mentioned before, the advantage that I had going to a smaller institution like Shaw was that it wasn't about who I was at the time. It was about who I could be. And that was something that, I loved about Shaw, because as I told you, I started off as a cymbal player. In the band, never done HBCU band before in my life. I did orchestra, and that kind of thing. And then, having the motivation to want to major in tuba when I've never picked up one until I got here. So that you can imagine the countless nights I had to spend playing catch up on my horn. Um, so having that experience, and then really having the experience of, I guess, working my way up to drum major. And and again, that was Mr. Brown's appointment, because he saw my leadership and my work ethic. um so having that experience, and then on top of that, Shaw is a relatively young band program. We started in 2002, and I came in 2003. So um so I was there for the second year of the program, so a lot was being developed during that time. So a lot of the, I guess, traditions, if you will, that we were trying to develop, I was a part of those. Like, I remember Mr. Brown made up one of the cadences that we play all the time, and different things like that. So being a part, having that kind of ties to my, as an alum to my program, is pretty cool. But for the most part, to sum it up, I just love the small environment that I was able to grow, and really had professors that really saw my potential, and talked to me like I needed to be talked to get my GPA to where it needed to be. So, I appreciate that.
You kind of touched on something that sparked my interest. So you came from a core style program into a traditional style. So can you tell us about that conversion?
Okay, well, are you talking about in terms of my high school history, or?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, well, my high school history, I didn't march at all. But with my program, when I got my first teaching job at Kinston High School, Kinston High School was traditionally a core style program. Um, and the band director had been there for many, many years. Definitely a respected band director, Mr. Charles Richburg, which, I forgot to totally mention him with the, because he was definitely instrumental in helping me that first year, because, I've always been in situations where I've had to learn quickly. So, going into a traditionally core style program, it was pretty cool in the fact that it took me out of my comfort zone with my arranging, because I had to approach my arranging differently. Thank God, having Gary on my team. My first show, we did a Michael Jackson show, and Gary helped me program the show, and was very instrumental. And that show was a very good show. And my writing and how I had to approach the arrangements was totally different. But I will say, when I converted the band, it helped in terms of trying to get kids to see the possibilities, because when we went to competitions in the eastern part of North Carolina, we didn't get to see Central or Shaw or A&T. We saw East Carolina, and there's nothing wrong with those schools, but most of my kids were going to A&T, or going to Central or coming to Shaw, but I wasn't giving them that experience. So I making that switch among the cost factor of being a core style band, because that's one of the I know that's a topic in and of itself, but it costs a lot of money to be a good core style band, because you're talking writing The drill writing's way more expensive. Having to cart your whole band room on in a U-Haul and everything else, like it's a lot. So, it was being in a rural program, I was tasked with, making a quality program and keeping that same quality and integrity of the program, but doing it in a way where I can give more students, and what's the big buzzword in education now, equitable experience with with being a part of band. And that's what I was able to deliver. So I know I kind of took that question somewhere else, but I apologize.
You good. This is your time. So we do have a question from the floor. The first question: based on your wide range of experiences with band parents and boosters, what is some advice for engaging their support and retaining it as well?
Communication is always key. And I mean, the one thing about being a band director is that, there's a lot of moving parts to our job, that all have to somehow, and we pray every day, they work simultaneously together. And I've experienced this on the college end as well as the high school end, in terms of being cool with the athletic director because he controlled the buses, being cool with the janitor because he got the keys and want to wax the floor the week you got band camp, or all of these different situations that we face, or having. But I would say, first and foremost, even before you get to the parents, like understanding your administrators is key, because that will, to me, communicating your vision and understanding your principals at the college level, presidents or vice presidents, understanding your vision of what you're trying to do, is the key of you doing what you need to do and working smarter and not harder than what you have to do. Because I've been in both situations. So that would be the key. And then, of course, with parents, just communication. The more that you can get out to parents and communicate with them, the better. Bylaws, handbooks, and whatever else that you have, and really, and I would say speak to people in the game like Mr. Pratt and others who have done this for a while, that have seen a wide variety of parents and issues and things like that, because sometimes how we choose to put out the fire could also exacerbate the flame, so to speak. So really getting a second opinion, I feel is always best.
So let's talk about the platinum sound.
All right.
Every band has a characteristic sound. What would you say is the characteristic sound of your band program?
That's a good question. Well, I'll say this, like, the one thing that I've always enjoyed about our band from when we were, from the earlier days, was that we were a band that took risk, with the way that we arranged, and the way that we sounded. Because for one, we didn't march clarinets. That's one. Two, the other thing was that Mr. Brown is a percussionist by trade, and his style was really funk, that 80s, Earth, Wind and Fire, and yeah, a lot of bands played it, but not too many bands drilled to Mighty Mighty and some of the B side of Earth, Wind and Fire that we did back in the day. The biggest thing that I would say, especially like what makes Shaw sound kind of different, is the fact that a lot of the earlier arranging styles is that we kind of have like a jazzy neo soul style. We use a lot of ninths, 11ths, and all kinds of crazy like stuff, and sometimes crazy endings, a lot of syncopations, key changes, stuff like that was all things that Chris kind of put into what kind of gave us our characteristic sound and made us sound different from other bands in the CIAA, which Mr. Brown was very big on, because even when I got to design the new uniforms, I chuckle about it, especially, within talking to Gary, because Gary was with me when we were, with that project. But Mr. Brown was like, King, I understand you're going to be the new band director, but you got to do two things. I want the chest to be black, and you got to keep the helmet. And because he really felt like, not too many bands, we're one of the few that, you know, wear the helmet like we wear and things like that. So he was always after trying to be different than everybody else. So those are a few things that I can say.
And honestly, nothing wrong with being different. If anything, that's what attracts. That's what attracts more. I love the idea of being different. Your program has a strong, solid sound despite the size. What's your approach to get this result?
Stress. Nah. I mean, at the end of the day, for one, I know since I have really dealt directly with sounds, I will say that Shaw has faced tremendous amount of challenges from 2015 because, you know, different administrations and different administration changes, policy changes, this, that, and the fifth. So, excuse me. So the biggest thing that I could say is that you know, since I have taken over, and a lot of my responsibilities was trying to upkeep the sound even in adverse kind of situations. I would say is just one, just doing what I know to be true, you know, fundamental teaching. Um, and no, I mean, I'm gonna be the first one to tell you that, you know, I'm not perfect. I know there's a lot of things that, you know, I'll listen to a clip and I will bash myself harder than you will ever do. Because I have perfect pitch. I know with intonation and things like that, good and bad and indifferent, you know. But I will say that the biggest thing is you know, fundamentals. I know, especially with the size, the change in the size of the band is knowing how to arrange for what you have, which is something that's definitely uh, been tough, should I say, especially with the, you know, because when I was in the band, you know, Shaw marched about 85 wins. And then in 2016, we went down as low as 28 wins. So it was definitely different trying to pull off some of those arrangements that we do. So I know pretty much my claim to fame right now has been to really take, I even go back to some of the things that I learned from Tim Chambers. Good voicing for what you have, writing in good keys for your band. And then I try to, at least because I know I've taken over the arranging responsibilities, at least try to put innuendos on our endings to kind of make us sound like what people are used to hearing from Shaw, the syncopated rhythms or you know, neo soul type chords and things like that. So those are things I can say that I try to do to keep the sound as consistent as possible, given the challenges that we face.
Wow, some good stuff, real good stuff. Um, so speaking to your band students, and I spoke to two or three, all showed great pride within the program, especially within your student leaders. How do you build leadership within your program?
Um, the first thing about leadership, I feel like, is communication, because in relationship building. Because the one thing that I can honestly say from my experience as a drum major, um, you have to have a relationship with your band director. If you don't have a relationship with your band director, and I know this from obviously the director of bands end and from the drum major end, it's very difficult to build your program. Especially, I remember even talking with picking back on something within Facia's interview about you know, us not having a big staff. I don't have a director of clarinet and a director of tuba at Shaw University. I have students. So therefore, but we're expected to come with the same quality as these bigger programs. So really having that leadership and that relationship helps you, because and gives you pride to, because you know, this is, you take ownership of it, so to speak. And that's really, you know, if I have to say something that I want, a goal of my leaders is getting them to take ownership of the program. Because the one thing that I can say is that you want to see how great a program is, let the band director be absent for a week or 2 weeks and they still have to carry on. It'll tell you everything you need to know about how well a program is oiled. And I'll never forget And I know it's not banned, but it definitely relates. And it definitely stuck with me because when I was at Fayetteville State, I also substitute taught. And I never forget, I subbed a theater class at Pine Forest High School in Fayetteville. And I went into the classroom. Everything was laid out for me on the desk. The bell rang. The kids came in the room. This girl got up at the podium. She took attendance. She told me to pretty much, in layman's terms, shut up and sit over there. I got this. And the class ran smoothly. I got the easiest little substitute day in my life. I will sub for her again because I didn't have to do nothing because the students had the expectations were set. You know, I didn't have to referee anything. And these are what you want, you know, really with any band program of what you want. Because when I look back at, because I know I know Show Style Talk did the battle with us in Fayetteville State in 2007. I was talking mad trash because I took ownership of my program. That was my band. I said, 2000, how dare you say some of the things you said because I had, you know, that was what it was because Mr. Brown, he said, hey, this is what it's going to be. And when it wasn't right, he said his choice words as band directors do. And it was what it was. But we got it together. And those were things that I respect because even going, you know, even if I wasn't a band director, that's what's expected of you in leadership. Because God knows if nothing has really going to make us all better teachers is having to deal with COVID-19 and coming up with some kind of plan to keep us all sane and to do our jobs. So, because I know it's stretching me in ways I thought I'd never be stretched. So.
Right. I think COVID kind of put everybody in a challenged thinking state. So we're all trying to figure it out together. So talking about your experiences, can you tell us your most memorable performance, both as a high school director and a collegiate director?
Let's see. As a high school director, I want to say my most memorable experience was the Hope County competition. I believe Gary helped me out when Miss Dr. White was there and Mr. Chambers was the music judge. What year was that? 12?
In 2012.
Yeah, 2012. Especially being on the smaller end of band programs. You know, grand champions, you know, are not something that comes far and you know, comes a whole lot, especially when you have, you know, 20, 30 wins and you having to go against 80, 90. And there ain't nothing wrong with that because, you know, I'm going to do what I got to do with my little 20 and 30, you know, and I'm going to give the best product that I possibly can. But that competition in particular, I was against some heavyweights and having Dr. White as a music judge from FAM and him being so complimentary of our show. And I came in, and matter of fact, that was my last year as a core style program. And giving me the encouragement and the positive reviews, it really was a memorable moment. And we walked away from that competition, I believe, like second runner-up overall, which was really good because there was some good bands from that day. I say my most memorable moment as director of bands now was probably the moment I realized I was director of bands. You know, when you the first game when, you know, this year and they said director of bands Andrae King, it, you know, it's kind of a surreal or out of body experience only because, you know, never in a million years would I thought I'd be here. You know what I mean? And I'm thankful and grateful for the opportunity that was given to me. So I would say, you know, just kind of, you know, seeing that contract and it said director of bands, like I was like, oh, this is real. Like, like, you know, it was, but I would say, you know, as of now, you know, just having that moment of you know, of pride and having to kind of continue on Mr. Brown's legacy, so to speak, and making my own, of course, has been probably for me since I'm young, you know, in this position, I say it's probably my most memorable moment.
So you touched on a key word that was one of my questions in my question set. Legacy is a big thing. So anytime a director is talking about the legacy they want to leave behind or the legacy they're creating, what's your definition of legacy when it comes to Shaw University?
My definition of legacy would be one, that legacy doesn't always come from uh, always playing the same songs or doing the same drill maneuver or things like that. Legacy comes from keeping the spirit and the pride and the integrity in which your program was founded under. Being that Shaw is such, or at least this version of the Shaw marching band, because Shaw actually had a marching band back in the 70s. An interesting fact, that marching band director was Professor Edward Graves. That was Mr. Brown's band director. And before he was at Tennessee State, he was at Shaw. Until we lost football, and then subsequently we didn't have a band for a long time. So, long story short, I would say legacy comes from just knowing, like, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the core philosophies within the program. So one of the legacies that I say, beyond, like, I guess, a sound, that I say that I take with me is to invest in every student that walks through Shaw University's doors. Why? Because that was one of the ones that I feel that Mr. Brown has always done. Two, I would always say, try your best to be different, with our approach, so pretty much I would say the task that I have, or my greatest challenge, is finding what Shaw University is now to attract students to want to come here. So I would say, trying to be innovative, but at the same time do things that, people still know that we're still Shaw, but at the same time, know that we're expanding, we're improving, we're evolving, not just change. Because a lot of programs, especially when you're in a smaller conference, or even at a lot of your smaller, or sometimes even other HBCUs, or especially high school programs, the identity of the program becomes what the band director is. So, obviously one year you could be Jackson State, the next year you could be FAMU, like, depending on who is, a part of that program. But being that we're such a small program, and I have the unique challenge of making Shaw was always Shaw, and then, now I can still make Shaw still Shaw, like that's pretty dope to me, because my experiences came from here. So evolution, not change, and really just the core principle. Because even when I went to a program that wasn't my own, and I didn't have any prior ties, like my high school program, Kinston High School, which was primary core style. The one thing that I will say is that, the program had such a legacy, knowing Mr. Richburg, the band director that was there before me, and his philosophy of music and how he approached it and understanding those things, helped me to kind of evolve Kinston into, we were still a show band, but I kept them, I still kept some elements that were still unique to the program. And I was proud of that, within that. So, writing that chapter, not just abolishing the one that came before it.
All right, so we got some questions coming in from the Facebook floor. The first question, who are your musical inspirations, both music educators and or professional performers?
Ooh, let's see, on the music education side, I would say this year will probably have to be Dr. Ronald Carter, the jazz professor. He was at Fayetteville State for a few years. And last year, I had the distinct honor of him wanting to come and send in some jazz band rehearsals. And watching a master educator like Dr. Ronald Carter was just it was unheard of. I love watching people who can teach just do their thing, because I was just a sponge and just amazed at the at just the wealth of knowledge that my students were receiving. And then I was engaged, they was engaged, and he had his way and charismatic way of talking to students, and students just caught on, and like he made a jazz lover out of my students in like 10 minutes. Like, and so I will say, most recently that experience alone has been one of my favorites. Um, I guess I'll just leave it there.
Second question coming from the Facebook floor. What's your method for keeping all your students motivated?
Just positive reinforcement, positive affirmations. A lot of times, band students, and really this COVID-19 situation has revealed a lot to me. And I'm pretty sure all of us, even at the high school or collegiate levels, can relate that we probably had personal conversations with some of our students, and and things aren't going well at their house, or things aren't what it needs to be, and they had to jump back in and get a job, and you know what I mean, or whatever the situation may be. But being able to, just encourage them, motivate them, push them, hey, you can do this, you can move forward. That is probably one of the most intrinsic things I would say about being a band director. And, this is my 11th year teaching. So I'll say that, and then sometimes I would say, like, I never forget my last year at Kinston High School. One of the faults that I definitely have as a band director, and I'm not afraid to be transparent, is that I will put a lot on my back. I'm one of those ones, if it ain't done right, I'm gonna be like, give me this, I'm gonna do it myself. You know what I mean? But obviously that's very stressful. And I had to learn how to let go and let God. So I never forget my first and my only year getting to do like a spring event at my school was my last year, because I with my band boosters and things like that, there's, a question, well, we go to say a band competitions, why can't we have one here? Well, you have to be organized, because I'm not about to bring your band or anybody's band up here and we not organized, and they looking, because ain't nothing worse than going to a competition that is not organized. I'm sorry, I know I speak for everybody on this panel when I say that. So I just laid out my expectations, and you when you do that, you will find, you'll have your faithful few that's going to go above and beyond, and because they're believing what you're doing. And that particular year, that's what happened. And then even with my seniors, they started ducking and dodging, not coming to practice. I said, look, we about to cancel this. It is what it is. You not step up, or this is what about to happen. And I'm not always like that. So for me to get like that, I had this, it was really big. So the one thing about it was, before I could even, I had that conversation with them, and before I can even know, them jokers was sweeping the gym, and they made plans. They done had a meeting and everything. They told me what I was going to do, and they told me to sit down. And that made me so proud, because, not the fact that I had to cancel, but because, it's just that whole take ownership of your program type of mentality that sometimes, even as a director, sometimes I have to remember I'm the coach, I'm not the player. So I can't put everybody on my back. You go out there and we play a good game, it is what it is, but I have to be on the sidelines now. So I would say, just with that in and of itself, just find a way to keep students encouraged, know what's expected out of them, positive affirmations, and things like that. Because, honestly, just, knowing, I guess, showing a student that you really care, in a professional way, of course, will go a long way in you them believing in what you do and believing in your program. Because ultimately, that's what we believe from all of our people that we respect in the game, was the relationships that we had with them.
And funny you should say that. I always tell my students, whenever we're at a game or whenever we're at a performance, they didn't come to see me. Even though I say I look good, they come to see the kids perform. And after the performance, if the kids did good, they're gonna brag about the band. But if the kids did not so good, oh, it's the director fault. It's almost like that football band thing. When the football team win, the football did it. If the football team lose, it's the band fault. They didn't play the right song or something like that.
Yeah.
It was those kind of deal. We have a question from our Zoom floor. Oh, what was your mindset preparing for North Carolina A&T at the beginning of this season if COVID had not gotten away?
To go out and be the best Shaw that I could possibly be, because I can't be nobody else but Shaw and Andrae King. You know, the biggest thing that I can say is that, you know, regardless, one, that would have been our second time playing A&T. And the first time, you know, not getting into a whole litany of what happened, it was definitely a difficult chapter within that year with the Platinum Sound, but we had to go out there. We did what we did. And, you know, good, bad, indifferent, you know, I know that, you know, I've had to learn, and especially Gary can tell you, because Gary's had to tell me this several times. Gary's my part-time therapist, by the way. You know, the one thing that I've learned over 11 years is if I know that I've done that, all that I can do, then I have to be fine with that. And, you know, and those are things that I was going, you know, having that mindset will definitely go a long way, because I can't be nobody but Shaw, because, you know, just like at the end of the day, you know, everybody has a unique situation. I don't know what it's like to be Dr. Ruff. I don't know what it's like to be the band director at A&T and that pressure. I don't know what it's like to be the band director at Florida A&M. And we all have our unique situations. I don't know what it's like to be a female band director in the CIAA. You know, watching that perspective, we all kind of have those unique perspectives. But the one thing about it is we just have to rely on our professionalism, rely on our drive, our dedication, and learn, you know, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. You know, I see Aubrey on here. You know what I mean? I call Aubrey, like, you know, even about learning the business of recruiting. I've had plenty of conversations with Aubrey about that, or even Warren Shaw, you know, because it's something to learn, you know, because a lot of people know the glory about want the glory about the whole HBCU side of being a college band director, but you don't know the story and know the challenges that come with sitting in this hot seat. And I've learned a whole lot in these last 2 years that will serve me for the rest of my life. I promise you that. But just to kind of resolve it, you know, I'm going to do what I got to do. We're going to, you know, my goal is to make the best Shaw that I can possibly be, not to beat or match A&T, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, music is music. If I go out there and we sound good with 35 wins and they have 300, it is what it is. You know, one of my favorite battles, because I am a band head, was when Tennessee State battled Edward Waters in that fifth quarter. I don't know if anybody saw that. And I was so impressed. That is one of my favorite battles, just to watch, because it was really David and Goliath. But couldn't nobody deny that Edward Waters had a solid presentation. So there you go.
Huge shout out to Tennessee State. Huge shout out to Edward Waters. We have a question from the Facebook floor. What's the atmosphere like between the band program and student life?
I think the biggest thing is, the one thing that I love about my students here at Shaw is that we're a huge family. You know, the one thing that I can say is that a lot of my students do march more than 2 years in the program. And at a college, I feel like that's very important to say that, you know, because a lot of times, you know, students will march maybe 1 or 2 years and then they like, look, I got other things to do. You know, we have a really close-knit relationship amongst the students, and a lot of camaraderie. I think the craziest story that I well, I ain't gonna say it's not even a crazy story, but I'll say this one. We have a lot of international students in our band from the Bahamas, and you know, sometimes they can't go home for Thanksgiving, and they'll get together and they'll cook, and you know, and they'll, you know, in the band, like they'll get together and become a band family. or if somebody don't have, they'll give $20 to help their fellow band member or to do what they need to do. Now, when they don't give it back, they come to me like I can do something about it. But at the end of the day, I respect the fact that beyond the relation, the positive camaraderie between our students has always been a thing that I admire most, and especially because our campus is so small. Those who have driven by Shaw, we're about 3 city blocks long, with a few buildings here and there. So our campus is pretty small. So we have a tight-knit environment. So, student life, to me, that's one of the things that I kind of like, is that because we're so small, you can't duck and dodge people. Not at Shaw. It's no way to possibly do that.
And funny you brought that up, because when I saw your program's promotion video, I think the first person that spoke had an accent, an island accent.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, okay, this is different already. So being the director of bands and also a ranger, well, let's just say you have a lot of hats you have to wear within your band program.
Yes.
So how do you find that balance?
My wife is my policeman. Nah, but the biggest thing is
now if I wish she was here right now, because my wife just heard that and she said so I know.
No, I mean I would honestly say, like, I guess the first answer is the right answer, but I'm not gonna throw my wife under the bus on the Zoom chat. But nah, I appreciate that, because sometimes you have to be reminded that you have a family too, because I'm one. If I got to stay and something, if I see a mess in the band room, I'm not gonna wait for the janitor to get it. If I don't tell the student to get it, I'm gonna get it. That's just my mentality. You know what I mean? Like, I work hard. I have a strong work ethic. So, like, when something bothers me, or I'll call Gary at odd times of the night if something's bothering me. I'm like, I got to get this right, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes, having people around you that can bring you back to planet Earth and say, okay, you're human, is definitely the case, because as you can see, I'm 35 and I got all this gray in my beard already from working so hard. So it's just like, I just try to find the balance. And then too, I would say, planning will be, the more that you can plan ahead of time, the better you can be. I know, when I was a high school director, I used to write my shows over the summer, try to get a feel of what I wanted to do, get with Gary, get ideas. I know, I planned on talking about, especially when you're dealing with a small band at the high school level, of you got that one kid that got to do every daggone thing at the school. They in the choir, they in the band, they the president of the SGA, they the cheerleader, and they want to do everything else, but they can only come to band for 3 minutes, and you got to teach a drill because I got to go to said band competition on Saturday. Like, dealing with those situations, you basically definitely have to plan, because you got to work it out. So wearing those hats, I will say that's really the biggest thing, and just pacing myself. I will say, and then too, I do have a great staff. I'm fortunate to have, I'm the only I'm the only full-time director at Shaw University, and likewise with Mr. Brown. But I do have a wonderful staff that consists of Mr. James Davis, formerly of 71st High School, is my assistant band director. And I have just a host of my Winston-Salem State grads. Lord knows, I got plenty of them. But everybody holds it down, and they really, help me put things together and that kind of thing. So even, when I can't complete stuff, I'm learning how to say, hey, can you help me with this? And things like that. And putting trust in people, because people will help you. You just got to let them know how to.
So one of the cool things I've learned these past couple weeks, when it comes to the CIAA directors, you guys support each other and support heavy. from the first interview with a CIAA director, I've seen multiple directors come in and sit in on the chat. So I got to give a huge shout out to the whole CIAA band directors, because you guys, you support it religiously. Last question. If you have any advice for the fresh out of college band director, what would you tell them?
Separate being a band head from being a music educator. Those are two different things.
Somebody typed in, say it louder for the ones in the back.
Separate being a band head from being a music educator. Because the one thing that will happen is that the band head side of you will take a beating like none other if you don't think with your music educator hat. Because, you know, all of us want, I know I speak for any band director on here that wants, you know, 85 trumpets and 30 tubas and a 260 block so-and-so that could take on any band in America. And when we play, we so loud that you're tone deaf. You're deaf, whatever. But that's not the case for you know, most of us. You know, what do you do when you go to a program that's in a rural place and, you know, you got a dancer, a baritone, and a drummer, and you got to make a band out of those things? Or, you know, and people want a band, or how do you advocate for your program when the principal tells you they want an immaculate marching band, like they mentioned, and they support you, but then they don't give you the resources to get those things done. Like, and like understanding how to communicate. So, you know, being an educator is not just being an educator. It's knowing how to communicate with your administrators, knowing how to speak the language of education. Because, you know, we speak the language of band, but speaking the language of education is a whole different beast when you're talking to people who don't deal with band. And that's at the college level and the high school level. You know, what else? Understanding, you know, just putting things in place, or whatnot, and to grow students, understanding assessment tools, understanding, you know, how to plan, how to approach differentiate. You know, I always joke with my administrator, because you know, I always when we did our evaluation, especially in the state of North Carolina, like we always had to talk with the principal afterwards. And I say, you know, band is probably the only class where the teacher has to differentiate on top of the differentiation of how it's set up. Because, you know, you teaching a clarinet and a tuba at the same time. Those are two different sets of instruments. But then you have this student that may have this disability or may have a different way of looking at things in the clarinet section, but you have to teach them differently than maybe your best clarinet player. But somehow you got to make it all to work together. So when you come out on the field Friday night, the principal don't hear the learning deficiency with this student and your great student, and, you know, they just hear a band. We're the only profession that's like that. You know, our data is put on display for everybody to see constantly. So that's why I say, you know, understanding the side of education is more important than being the biggest bandhead that you can ever be.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's a message right there. A lot of people saying you're preaching right now. So wow. And you that's how I know I'm throwing off. I'm stuttering at this point. That's a big message though. And even some of the seasoned band directors, they kind of still get confused with the mindset. Hey, I'm a band head before I'm a band director. So that's a real big message. Appreciate that. So for one quick second, I want everybody to unmute and let's give a huge round of applause for our personal interview corner, Mr. Andrae King.
All right, P2.
We greatly thank you for coming through. Do anybody got any questions, comments real quick?
I do.
Go for it.
You did a great job. You talked a lot, but you did a great job.
Thank you.
You did a great job. I'm proud of you.
I appreciate it.
Always.
Man, you know you my dude. We started together, so you know you my dude.
Look, Aubrey had me on TV. Look, I still ain't lost that stomach. Look, Aubrey had me on the on the news because I went down to recruit for school and they did an interview and I had this pose and my stomach, like all this pre-COVID weight on top of the COVID weight I put on my stomach, and I'm just, oh my God. And I still got the stomach though, like, so I'm still shamed. I gotta do something about it. But but that was a great time.
Wear a bigger shirt. Wear a bigger shirt.
Look, I miss band camp. At least I would have ran with the kids or something.
Man.
I will say this before you go. I will say that I have been immensely proud of you. Being with you every step of the way and just going. I'm glad you listen.
Mm-hmm.
And I know sometimes it's hard, and I know sometimes my delivery is very harsh. But we've made some good times together.
Oh yeah.
Now, the one thing I can say I learned from Mr. Bryant from interacting with him, his approach always means well. It might not sound the nicest, but it's only because he wants you to be better at it. I've seen that from his judging, and I'm appreciative of those kind of judges, the ones that say, "Hey, you got to do it like this."
Try growing up with him.
But I got to tell this short story about Gary. My first year at Kinston High School, Gary came and worked as a clinician, and one of my flute players had this heavy behind vibrato. Gary ate him up like, this is not the house. I forgot what you said, man, but you ate him alive.
Thought he was a virtuoso on the flute, and I was like, all this virtuoso flute playing is not needed for what I'm going over with on the podium. I was rehearsing music, and I heard all this loud vibrato just coming from this one piccolo player, and I'm just like, sir, like, what are you doing here? We don't need that. I'm not getting that right now.
I will never forget that. And when you made that waitress at East Coast Wing cry. But that's a whole nother story. But I know that ain't bad, but we can go. But Gary, man, I really appreciate you, man. I really do. Like, I appreciate everybody. Whatever conversation that I've had, whether it's been Warren Shaw. We actually played one of his arrangements last year. Mr. Pratt, Miss Cousins.
Yeah, brother, anyway. I appreciate what I just heard from you, man, and I'm very proud to say that you are from Fayetteville, and I wish I had opportunity to work with you more in Fayetteville, but you are doing some outstanding stuff, very articulate, knowledgeable, all of those things as a band director, and I'm watching you because I know great things is coming out of you, brother. So congratulations for you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Well, you give me an example to look up to, so I'm gonna keep doing it.
Well, we thank everybody for watching the Interview Corner on Facebook Live. Those who are in the chat, feel free to stick around. We're going to talk a little bit more. Those who are on Facebook, thank you guys for watching. Continue to support Interview Corner and have a great weekend.